Pisces is an extremely nebulous energy. It's very chaotic. It's very kind of like we don't have boundaries between each other, and it's porous, and we're all one, right? So from my experience, a lot of people get sick during Pisces season. I use a public swimming pool, or it's not public, it's like an athletic club, but a lot of people share it, and I do not use it during Sun in Pisces because our physical boundaries are at their weakest. And so with the shift into Aries from a couple days from now, I really have a good feeling that at that time, as human beings in this 3D reality, like our physical boundaries come back up to normal strength, and like infection, transmission, all that kind of stuff will slow down quite a bit. Some of these things you cannot see right away because, if you're not transmitting, then the people that would have been sick like 2 weeks from now will show up. So you may not see like the numbers come down until probably in 14 days, right, when the incubation period is over, because we're still getting people who got sick like last week or 2 weeks ago. So that's, I'm optimistic about that. However, I will tell you that in October I went on an astrology retreat in Bali, and I was telling the other members of this retreat that 2020 is coming, and everybody was talking about 2020. Why? Because 2020 has been called the Great Transformation, and people have known that it was coming for years and years and have been looking forward to it, but also nervous about it. Why? Because we have Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto coming together in the sign of Capricorn for the first time in 500 years. And so at this retreat, we were talking about how we're going to deal with this energy, and I said to people, I think we need to start growing our own vegetables and making sure we have like food supply. And people who live in remote areas may want to like buy some protection and stuff, because a gun or a knife or whatever, you just never know what kind of chaos is going to be unleashed. And this was in October. So we have been looking with nervous anticipation. I don't think not that I know of, like called that it was going to be a virus. It sort of makes sense because Uranus is in the sign of Taurus. Uranus is the planet of sudden events, and Taurus is all things like five senses, material security and environmental security. And so the fact that it is a disease makes sense because of where Uranus is. And so going back to Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto, which is like, I guess those could be called the main culprits of what's going on. Saturn and Pluto had their main peak on January the 12th. And so for the middle part of this year, there's going to be, so through the end of the year, there are 6 such conjunctions. So we've had 1 already, 1's down, 5 more to go. And they are going to last all the way through to December, about Christmas time of this year. This is not to say that it's going to be like nonstop coronavirus until Christmas, but what it does call forth is this continued shift in Capricorn. What is Capricorn? Capricorn is everything that relates to the bones of society, the structure of how we live. This relates to nations, borders, the rules and regulations. These kinds of things that are so fundamental to the way we live that we don't even have to think about it most of the time because it's just taken for granted. Like that's the way things are, It has to do, if you know Capricornians, you jump through the hoops, you're very hardworking, ambitious types that this is what you got to do to achieve. And if you do them, if you fulfill the requirements, you will get the reward. When there are major shifts in Capricorn, all that gets kind of disrupted, right? Like you can't count on it anymore. And that's, for you Capricornians, it's a big deal. It's a big deal to have some of like the ground beneath your feet starting to shift. For all of us, it's a big deal. So, people are saying in the States, like they thought yesterday was St. Patrick's Day, everybody thought they'd be in a bar celebrating with their friends because that's what they do every year. But this year they can't. And it's like they never knew, they were taking for granted that they could just go meet up with their friends in a bar. They can't do that. So it's calling on us to really like dig deep and figure out like what are the things in your life that you truly, truly value. This is on an individual level. On a societal level, it's even bigger things, right? Like when should a nation have open borders? When should it have closed borders? We used to be able to just get on a flight, go anywhere, and now it's like we have to see, am I allowed there? Who's kind of not allowing me, and then meanwhile, who am I not allowing, right? Like it's like everybody's either on one side of the fence or the other side of the fence, and so it's a really interesting and tough time where you have to really like look inside yourself. Decide how you want to live, what are your real values. I'm finding there are people who are sort of blasé about it because they insist on their freedom. Like I am not going to self-quarantine, or I am not going to wear a mask because I am, free and I'm not fearful. And then on the other side, you have some people who are like, I am going to take every precaution and I don't care what anyone says. I'm going to like have my hazmat suit on and, no virus is going to get near me. And, I'm going to hunker down at home and not go out for 3 weeks or whatever. So it's really, you may be seeing in your friends, like, some people are one way, some people are another way, and you never knew that about them. But this is the real us. This is like where we stand on issues like this. So it's really, what you don't want to do in a time like this is to be not self-reflective and just blind and following the crowd. Because this moment in time is calling on you to really understand yourself, why you are doing things a certain way, and maybe it's the same as all your friends, maybe it's different from all your friends. Are you gonna stay in Hong Kong? Are you gonna go to a different place? All of these decisions are pretty major, and they're kind of it's the time for you to dig deep and listen to your own inner guidance on these things, and not to rely too much on what everyone else is saying or what other people think is best.